Jennifer Hayes stared at her reflection in the elevator's polished doors, smoothing down her navy blazer for the 100th time that morning. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the presentation folder against her chest, trying to steady her breathing. 28th floor, the executive boardroom. The most important presentation of her 3-year career at Ashford Enterprises. "You've got this," she whispered to herself. Though the words felt hollow in her throat, the elevator chimed, and the doors slid open to reveal the sleek marble lobby of the executive suite. Jennifer stepped out, her sensible heels clicking against the floor with each deliberate step. Through the glass walls of the boardroom, she could see them already gathering the senior executives, the department heads, and somewhere among them, Richard Ashford himself. The billionaire founder who had built his empire from a single food truck in Austin, Texas, transforming it into a multinational hospitality and real estate conglomerate worth over $8 billion.
"Jennifer,
Wait up." Tom Whitmore jogged toward her, his tie slightly askew as usual. Tom had been her cubicle neighbor since her first day, the one person who had never made her feel small for asking questions or admitting she didn't know something. "I'm freaking out," Jennifer admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they hate my market analysis? What if my numbers are wrong? What if stop?" Tom placed both hands on her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Your research is solid. I checked it myself, remember? You found a genuine opportunity in the Dallas market that everyone else missed. Trust yourself." Jennifer nodded, but her stomach still churned with anxiety. She had spent 6 months compiling data on emerging neighborhoods, demographic shifts, and investment opportunities for Ashford's next boutique hotel development. It was innovative work, the kind that could define her career or end it if she failed spectacularly. "Let's grab coffee before we go in," Tom suggested, gesturing toward the executive break room. "You need caffeine, and I need you to stop looking like you're about to faint." The break room was mercifully empty. Jennifer set her folder on the counter and reached for the coffee pot with shaking hands. She poured carefully, watching the dark liquid fill her cup while mentally rehearsing her opening remarks. Behind her, Tom rummaged through the refrigerator looking for cream. "Did you know Ashford himself requested your presentation?" Tom said conversationally. Brenda was not happy about that. She wanted to present the findings herself. Jennifer's supervisor, Brenda Sullivan, had indeed been icily furious when Richard Ashford's office had specifically asked for Jennifer to deliver the presentation. Brenda had spent the past week making snide comments about inexperienced analysts getting above their station and the importance of not embarrassing the department. That just makes it worse. Jennifer muttered, adding sugar to her coffee. "Now if I mess up, it's not just my career on the line." It's the break room door swung open forcefully and Brenda herself strode in, her expression pinched with disapproval. "The meeting starts in 3 minutes, Jennifer." "Why are you still standing here chatting?" "I was just wasting time." Brenda's eyes narrowed. "This presentation reflects on my entire department. I expect you to be professional and concise. No rambling, no nervous jokes, and for heaven's sake, try to sound confident even if you're not." Jennifer felt her cheeks burn. "Yes, Brenda. I understand." "Good." Brenda's gaze swept over Jennifer's outfit with barely concealed disdain. "And next time, perhaps invest in a more expensive suit. Image matters at this level." Tom opened his mouth to protest, but Jennifer shot him a warning glance. Arguing with Brenda only made things worse. Instead, she grabbed her coffee cup and folder. Determined to prove her supervisor wrong through the quality of her work, the boardroom was already full when they entered. 20 executives sat around the massive oak table, some typing on laptops, others engaged in low conversations. At the head of the table sat Richard Ashford, his silver hair and sharp suit giving him an air of distinguished authority. He looked up as Jennifer entered, his keen gray eyes studying her with an intensity that made her heart race. "Ms. Hayes," he said, his Texas drawl softened by decades of international business dealings, "we're looking forward to your presentation. I've heard impressive things about your research." "Thank you, Mr. Ashford," Jennifer managed, setting her folder on the presentation podium. Her hands were still shaking as she connected her laptop to the projection system. Brenda took a seat near Richard. leaning in to whisper something that made his eyebrows rise slightly. Jennifer tried to ignore them, focusing instead on pulling up her presentation slides. The first slide appeared on the large screen, a title card with her name and the project summary. "Whenever you're ready, Ms. Hayes," Richard said, settling back in his chair. Jennifer opened her mouth to begin, reaching for her coffee cup to take a quick sip for courage. But her trembling fingers misjudged the distance. Instead of grasping the cup securely, her hand knocked it sideways. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. The coffee cup tipped, spilling its contents across the podium in a dark spreading wave. Jennifer lunged to save her folder, but the hot liquid had already reached it, soaking through the pages of her carefully prepared notes. Worse, much worse, the coffee splashed onto her white blouse and down the front of her navy blazer, leaving enormous brown stains that screamed incompetence and carelessness.
"Oh no."
Jennifer gasped, watching in horror as coffee dripped onto her skirt and even splattered onto her shoes. The room had gone completely silent. 20 pairs of eyes stared at her, 20 witnesses to her absolute humiliation. For crying out loud, Brenda's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. Jennifer, this is a boardroom, not a college cafeteria." Jennifer felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them back furiously. She grabbed napkins from the podium's side drawer, desperately trying to blot at the stains while her face burned with shame. "I'm so sorry," she stammered. The presentation is on my laptop, so the slides are fine. I can still... You look like you took a bath in coffee," Brenda continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "How do you expect anyone to take your analysis seriously when you can't even handle a simple cup of coffee? This is embarrassing for the entire department." Tom started to protest, but Brenda silenced him with a glare. Jennifer stood frozen at the podium, coffee-soaked and mortified, staring at her ruined notes. The detailed annotations she had made, the statistics she had highlighted, all reduced to a brown, soggy mess. Her carefully planned opening remarks had vanished from her mind completely, replaced by a screaming voice that told her she was a failure, that she didn't belong here, that Brenda had been right all along. "Perhaps we should take a short break," someone suggested from the table. "Oh, Richard." Ashford's voice cut through the murmurs. Jennifer looked up to find him standing, his expression unreadable. He walked around the table toward her. She braced herself for the final humiliation, being dismissed from the meeting. Possibly from her job entirely, but Richard didn't look angry. He pulled out his own handkerchief and handed it to her. "Accidents happen, Ms. Hayes. I once spilled an entire pot of chili on myself during a pitch to investors at my first restaurant. Ruined my only good shirt and had to finish the presentation smelling like cumin and tomatoes." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the room, but Jennifer barely heard them. She was too focused on not crying, on not completely falling apart in front of everyone. "Why don't you take 5 minutes?" Richard continued gently. "Clean up as best you can, collect your thoughts, and then we'll hear what you have to say. Your research is what matters here, not your dry cleaning bill." Jennifer nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She gathered her laptop with shaking hands and fled the boardroom, Brenda's disapproving glare burning into her back. In the hallway, she practically ran toward the women's restroom. Her vision blurring with tears she could no longer hold back. The bathroom was empty. Thank God. Jennifer set her laptop on the counter and stared at her reflection. Coffee stains covered her from chest to thigh. Her carefully applied makeup was smudged from wiping at her eyes. She looked exactly like what Brenda had implied: a mess, an amateur. Someone who didn't belong in that boardroom. She ran cold water over paper towels and dabbed hopelessly at the stains, knowing it was futile, but needing to do something. 6 months of work, 6 months of late nights, and weekend research. And she had destroyed it all in 5 seconds of clumsiness. A sob escaped her throat, and then another. Jennifer braced her hands on the counter, letting the tears fall. Her career at Ashford Enterprises was over. She would be reassigned to some basement filing job, or more likely, quietly let go during the next round of budget cuts. Brenda would make sure of it. The bathroom door opened, and Jennifer quickly turned away, frantically wiping at her face.
"Jennifer."
It was Tom's voice, concerned and hesitant. I know I'm not supposed to be in here, but I'm coming in anyway. Don't throw anything at me. Jennifer let out a sound that was half laugh, half sobbed. I'm fine, Tom. You should go back to the meeting. The meeting's on hold until you return. Tom appeared beside her, his expression sympathetic. Richard insisted everyone wait. He told Brenda to stop being cruel, which was pretty satisfying to watch, actually. It doesn't matter, Jennifer said miserably. I humiliated myself. I humiliated the whole department. Brenda was right, I'm not ready for this level. It's garbage and you know it. Tom grabbed more paper towels and helped her blot at the stains. You're one of the smartest analysts in the company. One spilled cup of coffee doesn't change that. Tell that to my career prospects. I'm more worried about telling that to Richard Ashford, who specifically waited for your presentation and seems genuinely interested in what you have to say. Jennifer looked up at Tom, hope and terror warring in her chest. He's really waiting? The whole room is waiting. Well, except Brenda, who looks like she's sucking on lemons, but that's her default expression anyway. Despite everything, Jennifer felt a small smile tug at her lips. She looked at her reflection against still stained, still blotchy from crying. But maybe, just maybe, not completely defeated. I don't have my notes anymore, she said quietly. The coffee destroyed them. So speak from your heart, Tom replied. You know this research better than anyone. You don't need notes to tell them what you discovered.
No.
Jennifer took a deep breath, then another. She couldn't change what had happened. She couldn't undo the spilled coffee or take back the humiliation. But she could choose what came next. She could walk away, or she could walk back into that boardroom and finish what she started. Okay, she whispered. Okay, let's do this. Tom grinned. That's my girl. Now, come on, before Brenda spontaneously combusts from impatience. They walked back toward the boardroom together, Jennifer's heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Through the glass walls, she could see the executives still seated, waiting. Richard Ashford stood by the windows, his hands clasped behind his back, gazing out at the city skyline. As Jennifer pushed open the door, he turned and their eyes met. What she saw there surprised her, not pity, not judgment, but something that looked almost like recognition, as if he saw past the coffee stains and the tears and the humiliation to something deeper underneath. Ready, Ms. Hayes? He asked. Jennifer squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked back to the podium. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady. Yes, Mr. Ashford, I'm ready. The presentation lasted 45 minutes, and Jennifer spoke every word without notes. She talked about demographic shifts in the Dallas neighborhoods of Oaklawn and Uptown, about the influx of young professionals seeking walkable communities, about the gap in the market for boutique hotels that offered authentic local experiences rather than corporate uniformity. She showed slides mapping property values, foot traffic patterns, and competitor analysis. She outlined 3 potential sites, complete with projected returns on investment and risk assessments. And through it all, Richard Ashford watched her with unwavering attention, occasionally nodding, sometimes jotting notes, but never once looking away. When Jennifer clicked to her final slide, a summary of recommendations, she felt something shift inside her. The coffee stains were still there, visible reminders of her humiliation, but somehow they mattered less now. She had done what she came to do. She had shared 6 months of meticulous work, and she had done it well. Thank you for your time, Jennifer concluded, her voice strong. I'm happy to answer any questions. The room erupted in discussion. Executives leaned toward each other, debating her findings. Tom gave her a discreet thumbs up from his seat. Only Brenda sat silent, her lips pressed into a thin line of displeasure. Richard stood, silencing the room. Ms. Hayes, your research is exceptional. Thorough, innovative, and precisely the kind of forward-thinking analysis this company needs. He paused, his gray eyes studying her with that same intense recognition. I'd like to discuss this further. Can you come to my office at 4 o'clock this afternoon? Jennifer's heart skipped. Of course, Mr. Ashford. Thank you. The rest of you, thank you for your time. We'll reconvene next week to discuss implementation strategies. Richard gathered his papers, then looked directly at Brenda. Ms. Sullivan, a word in private, please. Brenda's confident expression faltered for just a moment before she recovered. Following Richard out of the boardroom with forced composure, Jennifer watched them go, uncertain whether to feel vindicated or terrified about what might be discussed. Tom rushed over the moment the room began to clear. You crushed it. Did you see their faces? Half of them were taking notes like crazy. I just hope it was enough, Jennifer said, gathering her laptop with trembling hands. The adrenaline that had carried her through the presentation was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Enough? Jennifer, you just knocked it out of the park while wearing a Coffee Jackson Pollock painting. That's legendary status right there. Despite her anxiety, Jennifer laughed. I need to go home and change before meeting with Mr. Ashford. I can't show up to the CEO's office looking like this. Go. I'll handle any follow-up questions from the vultures. Tom shooed her toward the door, then called after her, and Jennifer. I'm proud of you. Those simple words nearly brought fresh tears to her eyes. Jennifer nodded, not trusting her voice, and headed for the elevators. The afternoon passed in a blur of nervous energy. Jennifer showered, changed into her best gray suit, the one she saved for truly important occasions, and rehearsed possible conversation scenarios in her mind. What did Richard Ashford want to discuss? Her research. Her future at the company? The coffee incident that would probably become office legend? At 3:45, she returned to the executive floor, her palms sweaty despite multiple applications of hand lotion. Richard's executive assistant, an elegant woman in her 50s named Patricia, greeted her with a warm smile. Ms. Hayes, Mr. Ashford is expecting you. Go right in. Richard's office was nothing like Jennifer had imagined. Instead of imposing and austere, it felt oddly personal. Photographs lined the credenza Richard with his food truck in Austin. Richard breaking ground on his first hotel, Richard at charity events and ribbon cuttings. The bookcases held not just business texts, but novels, biographies, and travel guides. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled out in afternoon sunlight. Richard stood when she entered, gesturing to a comfortable seating area with leather chairs arranged around a coffee table. Not his desk, a more casual setting that somehow made Jennifer even more nervous. Please, sit, he said, settling into one of the chairs. Would you like something to drink? Coffee? Perhaps? Jennifer couldn't help it. She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that escaped before she could stop it. Maybe water would be safer. Richard's eyes crinkled with genuine amusement. Wise choice. He poured water from a carafe into 2 glasses, handing her one. I want to start by apologizing for Brenda's behavior this morning. It was inappropriate and cruel, and I've addressed it with her directly. You didn't need to. Yes, I did. Richard's voice was firm, but not unkind. Talented people leave companies not because of the work, but because of how they're treated while doing it. I built Ashford Enterprises on the principle that we invest in people, not just properties. Brenda forgot that. Jennifer took a sip of water, unsure how to respond. Richard Ashford, billionaire CEO, was sitting across from her, defending her honor. It felt surreal. I asked you here because I saw something in that boardroom today, Richard continued, leaning forward slightly. When that coffee spilled, you had a choice. You could have run, could have rescheduled, could have let embarrassment defeat you. Instead, you wiped off your notes, stood up, and delivered one of the most compelling presentations I've seen in years. Do you know how rare that is? Part 2. An unexpected connection. The presentation lasted 45 minutes, and Jennifer spoke every word without notes. She talked about demographic shifts in the Dallas neighborhoods of Oak Lawn and Uptown, about the influx of young professionals seeking walkable communities, about the gap in the market for boutique hotels that offered authentic local experiences rather than corporate uniformity. She showed slides, mapping property values, foot traffic patterns, and competitor analysis. She outlined 3 potential sites, complete with projected returns on investment and risk assessments. And through it all, Richard Ashford watched her with unwavering attention, occasionally nodding, sometimes jotting notes, but never once looking away. When Jennifer clicked to her final slide, a summary of recommendations, she felt something shift inside her. The coffee stains were still there, visible reminders of her humiliation, but somehow they mattered less now. She had done what she came to do. She had shared 6 months of meticulous work, and she had done it well. "Thank you for your time," Jennifer concluded, her voice strong. "I'm happy to answer any questions." The room erupted in discussion. Executives leaned toward each other, debating her findings. Tom gave her a discreet thumbs up from his seat. Only Brenda sat silent, her lips pressed into a thin line of displeasure. Richard stood, silencing the room. "Ms. Hayes, your research is exceptional. Thorough, innovative, and precisely the kind of forward-thinking analysis this company needs." He paused, his gray eyes studying her with that same intense recognition. "I'd like to discuss this further. Can you come to my office at 4 o'clock this afternoon?" Jennifer's heart skipped. "Of course, Mr. Ashford, thank you. The rest of you, thank you for your time. We'll reconvene next week to discuss implementation strategies." Richard gathered his papers, then looked directly at Brenda. "Miss Sullivan, a word in private, please." Brenda's confident expression faltered for just a moment before she recovered. Following Richard out of the boardroom with forced composure, Jennifer watched them go, uncertain whether to feel vindicated or terrified about what might be discussed. Tom rushed over the moment the room began to clear. "You crushed it. Did you see their faces? Half of them were taking notes like crazy." "I just hope it was enough," Jennifer said, gathering her laptop with trembling hands. The adrenaline that had carried her through the presentation was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. "Enough. Jennifer, you just knocked it out of the park while wearing a Coffee Jackson Pollock painting. That's legendary status right there." Despite her anxiety, Jennifer laughed. "I need to go home and change before meeting with Mr. Ashford. I can't show up to the CEO's office looking like this. Go. I'll handle any follow-up questions from the vultures." Tom shooed her toward the door, then called after her and Jennifer, "I'm proud of you." Those simple words nearly brought fresh tears to her eyes. Jennifer nodded, not trusting her voice, and headed for the elevators. The afternoon passed in a blur of nervous energy. Jennifer showered, changed into her best gray suit, the one she saved for truly important occasions, and rehearsed possible conversation scenarios in her mind. What did Richard Ashford want to discuss? Her research? Her future at the company? The coffee incident that would probably become office legend? At 3:45, she returned to the executive floor, her palms sweaty, despite multiple applications of hand lotion. Richard's executive assistant, an elegant woman in her 50s named Patricia, greeted her with a warm smile. "Ms. Hayes, Mr. Ashford is expecting you. Go right in." Richard's office was nothing like Jennifer had imagined. Instead of imposing and austere, it felt oddly personal. Photographs lined the credenza Richard with his food truck in Austin. Richard breaking ground on his first hotel. Richard at charity events and ribbon cuttings. The bookcases held not just business texts, but novels, biographies, and travel guides. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled out in afternoon sunlight. Richard stood when she entered, gesturing to a comfortable seating area with leather chairs arranged around a coffee table. Not his deska, more casual setting that somehow made Jennifer even more nervous. "Please, sit," he said, settling into one of the chairs. "Would you like something to drink? Coffee, perhaps?" Jennifer couldn't help it. She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound that escaped before she could stop it. Maybe water would be safer. Richard's eyes crinkled with genuine amusement. Wise choice. He poured water from a carafe into 2 glasses, handing her one. "I want to start by apologizing for Brenda's behavior this morning. It was inappropriate and cruel, and I've addressed it with her directly." "You didn't need to." "Yes, I did." Richard's voice was firm but not unkind. Talented people leave companies not because of the work, but because of how they're treated while doing it. I built Ashford Enterprises on the principle that we invest in people, not just properties. Brenda forgot that. Jennifer took a sip of water, unsure how to respond. Richard Ashford, billionaire CEO, was sitting across from her, defending her honor. It felt surreal. "I asked you here because I saw something in that boardroom today," Richard continued, leaning forward slightly. "When that coffee spilled, you had a choice. You could have run, could have rescheduled, could have let embarrassment defeat you. Instead, you wiped off your notes, stood up, and delivered one of the most compelling presentations I've seen in years. Do you know how rare that is? I just didn't want to waste everyone's time, Jennifer said softly. No. Richard shook his head. It was more than that. You showed resilience, grace under pressure, the ability to focus on what matters rather than what's merely uncomfortable. He paused, his expression growing distant. 28 years ago, I was trying to get funding for my third restaurant location. I'd worn my only good suit, rehearsed my pitch 100 times, and walked into that bank absolutely terrified. Jennifer found herself leaning forward, drawn into the story. I made it exactly 5 minutes into my presentation before I knocked over my own briefcase. Papers everywhere. Financial projections scattered across the floor, and as I bent down to pick them up, I split my pants. Right down the back seam. Richard smiled at the memory, though Jennifer could see the old embarrassment still lurking in his eyes. The loan officer laughed. Not kindly either. He said people who couldn't manage their own briefcases had no business managing restaurants. That's horrible, Jennifer breathed. It was devastating. I was 24, drowning in debt from my first 2 locations, and that loan was supposed to be my lifeline. Richard took a sip of his own water. But you know what I did? I gathered up every single paper, stood there with my split pants and my burning face, and I finished my pitch. I told that loan officer exactly why my restaurants were going to succeed. Why the numbers added up, why betting against me would be the biggest mistake of his professional life. Did you get the loan? No, Richard laughed. He turned me down flat. But a woman who'd been waiting for her own appointment overheard everything. Margaret Chen, a small business investor. She followed me out to the parking lot, introduced herself, and said anyone stubborn enough to finish a pitch with split pants was someone she wanted to back. She gave me the funding that day. Jennifer felt something warm unfold in her chest. And your restaurants succeeded. They did. And I never forgot what Margaret taught me. That character reveals itself not when things go smoothly, but when they fall apart. Richard met her eyes directly. This morning, when that coffee spilled, I didn't see an incompetent analyst. I saw someone with the strength to continue despite humiliation. That's the quality I need for what I'm about to propose. Jennifer's pulse quickened. What do you mean? I'm launching a new Iniciativa boutique hotel brand targeting exactly the demographic you identified in your research. Not just in Dallas, but in 8 cities across the South and Southwest. It's going to require someone who can conduct deep market analysis, identify opportunities others miss, and make strategic recommendations at the executive level. Richard leaned back, watching her reaction carefully. I want you to lead the research division for this initiative, Jennifer. You'd report directly to me, work with a team of analysts, you'll help select, and have input on every major decision we make. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Jennifer gripped her water glass to steady herself. I'm Mr. Ashford. I'm only 28. I've been with the company 3 years. There are people with decades more experience who think the same way they've always thought, Richard interrupted gently. I need fresh perspective. Bold ideas. Someone hungry enough to prove themselves and brave enough to stand up when they've been knocked down, he smiled. Someone who can deliver a brilliant presentation while covered in coffee? Ow. Jennifer's mind raced. This was beyond anything she'd imagined, beyond her wildest career fantasies. Lead research analyst, reporting to the CEO, helping shape an entire new brand. Brenda would be furious, she said aloud. Then immediately regretted the unprofessional observation. But Richard just nodded. Brenda's being transferred to our Austin office to oversee operations there. It's a lateral move, but it removes her from a supervisory role she's proven unfit for. Her treatment of you wasn't an isolated incident. Received complaints from others on her team. Relief and guilt warred in Jennifer's chest. She hadn't wanted to cost Brenda her position, but she also couldn't deny the toxic environment her supervisor had created. I know this is a lot to process, Richard continued. You don't have to answer today. Think about it over the weekend. Talk to people you trust. This role would be demanding long hours, high pressure, significant responsibility. "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said, surprised by her own boldness. "Anything? Why me?" Really. There had to be 50 people in this company more qualified on paper. Richard was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "When I was building my first hotel, I had a choice between two contractors. One had an impeccable resume, decades of experience, references from every major developer in Texas. The other was younger, hungrier, with half the credentials but twice the passion. Everyone told me to go with experience, but you didn't. I went with hunger, with someone who had something to prove, who would treat my project like it was their own dream too." Richard's expression grew serious. "Experience matters, Jennifer, but so does fire. So does the willingness to take risks, to think differently, to care deeply about the work. You have that fire? I saw it this morning when you didn't let humiliation stop you. I saw it in your research, in the way you identified opportunities no one else had noticed. That's worth more to me than a decade of playing it safe." Jennifer felt tears prick at her eyes again, but these were different from the ones she'd shed in the bathroom that morning. These were tears of recognition, of being seen for who she truly was, rather than who she feared she appeared to be. "I don't need the weekend," she heard herself say. "Yes, I want this position. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired. I'll prove you made the right choice." Richard's smile transformed his entire face, making him look younger and genuinely delighted. "I have no doubt. Welcome to the executive team, Jennifer. We'll make the official announcement Monday morning." They shook hands, and Jennifer felt the weight of the moment settle over her. Everything had changed. The career she'd thought destroyed by a coffee spill had, instead, been catapulted forward by how she'd responded to that disaster. As she left Richard's office, Patricia handed her a folder. "Your new office assignment and team roster," the assistant explained. "Mr. Ashford moves quickly once he's made a decision. HR will reach out about salary and benefits tomorrow." Jennifer walked to the elevator in a daze, clutching the folder like a lifeline. The doors opened, and Tom practically fell out, clearly having been waiting for her. "Well," he demanded. "What happened? You've been in there over an hour." "I got promoted," Jennifer said, her voice distant with shock. "Lead research analyst, new hotel initiative, executive team." Tom's whoop of joy echoed through the entire floor. He grabbed her in a bear hug, spinning her around until they were both dizzy and laughing. "Told you," he crowed. "I told you that you crushed it. This is amazing, Jennifer. You deserve this so much." They celebrated with takeout Chinese food in Jennifer's tiny apartment that evening. Tom insisting on buying champagne neither of them could really afford. As Jennifer opened her fortune cookie, she found herself thinking about Richard's story. About split pants and spilled coffee, about the moments that seem like endings, but turn out to be beginnings. "What's it say?" Tom asked, mouth full of lo mein. Jennifer read the small slip of paper aloud. "Your greatest strength lies in embracing your vulnerabilities." "That's weirdly perfect," Tom observed. It was. Jennifer tucked the fortune into her wallet. A reminder that sometimes the worst moments reveal the best possibilities. But Monday morning brought complications she hadn't anticipated. Jennifer arrived early to her new office. Real office with walls and a door and a view of the city, to find an envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a printed email chain. Her blood ran cold as she read it. The emails were between Brenda and several department heads, sent over the past 6 months. In them, Brenda took credit for Jennifer's research, presenting findings as her own work. Worse, there were messages dismissing Jennifer as marginally competent and requiring constant supervision, directly contradicting the excellent performance reviews Jennifer had received. The envelope contained no note, no explanation of who had sent it or why, but the implications were clear. Brenda had been systematically stealing Jennifer's work and undermining her reputation. Jennifer's hand shook as she read through the emails a second time, anger building with each passing moment. All those times Brenda had demanded to review Jennifer's research before it went anywhere. All those presentations Brenda had given that sounded suspiciously similar to Jennifer's reports. It hadn't been supervision, it had been theft. A knock on her door made Jennifer jump. Richard stood in the doorway, his expression concerned. Jennifer, he saw the papers in her hands, and his jaw tightened. Where did you get those? They were slipped under my door. I don't know who sent them. Jennifer's voice trembled with barely suppressed fury. Did you know about this? I suspected something, Richard admitted, stepping into her office and closing the door. Several of your colleagues mentioned inconsistencies presentations Brenda gave that contained work they knew you'd done. But I didn't have proof until this weekend, when our IT department flagged some unusual email patterns during a routine audit. She stole my work, Jennifer said flatly. For 6 months, she took credit for my research. And she told people I was incompetent while doing it. I know. And it's being addressed. Richard's voice was hard with controlled anger. Brenda's transfer to Austin has been canceled. She's being terminated effective today. HR is conducting a full review of her tenure to determine if there are grounds for legal action. Jennifer should have felt vindicated, but instead she just felt tired. How many other people did she do this to? At least 3 junior analysts that we've identified so far. Possibly more. Richard sat in the chair across from her desk. I failed you, Jennifer. I should have caught this sooner. I should have been paying closer attention to what was happening in that department. You gave me a chance when it mattered most, Jennifer said quietly. That's what I'll remember. Still, I want you to know that your promotion has nothing to do with this discovery. You earned this position through your own merit, your own intelligence and determination. Brenda's misconduct doesn't change that. Jennifer nodded, though part of her wondered if people would see it differently. Would her colleagues think she'd been promoted out of pity or guilt? Would they assume she'd leveraged Brenda's firing to advance her own career? As if reading her mind, Richard said, I'm addressing the entire company this afternoon. I'll be explaining the situation with Brenda and making it clear that your promotion was decided before any of this came to light. I want there to be no question about your qualifications or your right to this role. Thank you, Jennifer whispered. After Richard left, Jennifer sat alone in her new office, staring at the emails spread across her desk. She thought about Friday morning, about standing in that boardroom covered in coffee, certain her career was over. She thought about Brenda's cutting words, designed to humiliate and diminish, but she also thought about what? Richard had said that character reveals itself when things fall apart. Brenda's character had been revealed through cruelty and theft. Jennifer's had been revealed through resilience and grace. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tom. Heard about Brenda. You okay? Jennifer typed back, better than okay. Ready to get to work? She was. The coffee stain incident that had seemed like her greatest. Professional humiliation had actually been the catalyst for everything that followed. It had shown Richard who she really was. It had led to this office, this opportunity, this chance to prove what she could do. Jennifer Hayes opened her laptop and pulled up the project files for the new hotel initiative. She had 8 cities to research, a team to build, and a CEO who believed in her potential. The coffee stains were gone now, cleaned away and forgotten, but the strength she'd found that morning, the courage to continue despite humiliation. To finish what she'd started even when everything fell apart, that would stay with her forever. 3 months later, Jennifer stood in a conference room in Nashville, Tennessee, staring at a wall covered in maps, demographic charts, and property listings. Her team of 5 analysts buzzed around her, debating the merits of different neighborhoods while she tried to synthesize their findings into a coherent recommendation. The gulch is too saturated, offered Priya Banerjee, one of the analysts Jennifer had personally recruited. 7 new hotels in the past 2 years alone. We'd be fighting for market share. But East Nashville is gentrifying fast, countered James Whitfield, gesturing to a map plastered with colored pins. Property values up 30% in 18 months. Young professionals flooding in. That's exactly our target demographic. Jennifer studied the data, her mind working through the variables. The boutique hotel initiative, which Richard had named Compass and Key as a nod to travel and belonging, required perfect site selection. Too trendy, and they'd chase fleeting fads. Too conservative, and they'd miss opportunities. She'd learned to trust her instincts while backing them up with ruthless analysis. What about Germantown? She suggested, pointing to a neighborhood just north of downtown. It's established enough to have infrastructure, but still has that local character we're looking for. Plus, there's that historic building on Fifth Avenue, the old printing factory. I looked into it last night. The owner's been trying to sell for months. Priya pulled up information on her laptop. Wow, you're right. And the price point is actually reasonable because it needs significant renovation. We could turn that into a selling point, restoration of historic Nashville architecture. I love it, James agreed. Let me run some foot traffic analysis on that area. Jennifer smiled, feeling that familiar thrill of pieces falling into place. This was her favorite part of the job, the moment when research transformed into vision. When numbers on a page became a place people would actually visit, sleep in, make memories. Her phone buzzed. Richard's name appeared on the screen. How's Nashville looking? Found a strong contender in Germantown, she typed back. Sending full analysis by end of day. Perfect. Need you in Houston next week? Potential investors want to meet the brains behind our site selection. Jennifer's stomach flipped with nervous excitement. Investors. 3 months ago, she'd been terrified of presenting to her own department. Now she was heading to Houston to convince millionaires to fund a multi-city hotel expansion. Team, we've got until 5 o'clock to put together a complete Nashville proposal, Jennifer announced. Priya, I need comparable property analysis. James, get me demographics within a 2-mile radius. Everyone else, I want 5-year projections on neighborhood growth, entertainment venues, and foot traffic patterns. Let's move. The team scattered, energized by the deadline. Jennifer returned to her own laptop. It's already drafting the executive summary that would introduce the Nashville opportunity to Richard and the board. She'd learned to lead by example, working harder than anyone else, staying later, caring more deeply. It was exhausting, but it was also exhilarating in a way her old job never had been. Her phone rang. Tom's name appeared, and Jennifer answered on speaker while continuing to type. Please tell me you have good news about the Dallas property. Better than good. The Oaklawn site got approved for zoning changes. We can break ground in 6 weeks. Tom had been promoted to project coordinator, managing the construction and development side of Compass and Key. Jennifer, this is really happening. Your research, your vision, it's becoming actual buildings. Our vision, Jennifer corrected. I couldn't do this without you coordinating everything on the ground. Well, I couldn't do it without your brilliant site selection. We make a good team. Tom paused. Also, did you hear about Brenda? Jennifer's typing slowed. She tried not to think about her former supervisor, though news occasionally filtered through the office gossip network. What about her? She's suing the company. Wrongful termination. Claims she was fired without cause and that you fabricated evidence against her. The words hit Jennifer like a physical blow. She'd known legal action was possible. HR had warned her months ago, but hearing it confirmed made her feel sick. She can't be serious. The emails were real. Other people confirmed she stole their work too.
I know.
And the company's lawyers say her case is weak. But Jennifer, be prepared. This might get ugly. She's trying to claim you engineered her firing to take her job. Jennifer closed her eyes, fighting back the anxiety that threatened to overwhelm her. Just when she'd finally found her footing, just when she'd proven she deserved this position, Brenda was trying to drag her back down. You still there? Tom asked gently. Yeah, I'm here. Jennifer took a deep breath. I earned this job, Tom. I worked for it. I didn't ask for Brenda to be fired. I didn't even know about the email investigation until it was already done. Everyone knows that. Anyone who matters knows that. Tom's voice was firm with conviction. Don't let her get in your head. You've got a proposal to finish and investors to impress. Focus on that. He was right. Jennifer pushed away thoughts of lawsuits and accusations, returning her attention to the Nashville analysis. She had work to do, a team counting on her, and cities full of possibilities waiting to be discovered. But that evening, alone in her hotel room, Jennifer let herself feel the full weight of Brenda's lawsuit. She imagined depositions, lawyers, her character questioned in court. She imagined headlines about corporate intrigue and stolen jobs. She imagined everything she'd built crumbling, because someone bitter and vindictive couldn't accept responsibility for their own misconduct. A knock on her hotel room door startled her out of the spiral. Jennifer checked the peephole and was shocked to see Richard Ashford standing in the hallway. "Mr. Ashford." She opened the door, confused. "What are you doing in Nashville?" "I flew in this afternoon. Wanted to check on the site selection progress." Richard's expression was kind, but serious. "And I heard about Brenda's lawsuit. Figured you might need to talk." Jennifer stepped back, letting him into the small sitting area of her suite. Richard settled into one of the chairs, looking somehow at ease despite the generic hotel furnishings. "I'm fine," Jennifer said automatically, then caught herself. "No, actually, I'm not fine. I'm angry and scared and frustrated. I've worked so hard these past 3 months, and now Brenda's trying to paint me as some kind of manipulative opportunist. She's grasping at straws," Richard said calmly. "Her lawyers know it, our lawyers know it, and eventually she'll know it too. This lawsuit won't go anywhere, Jennifer. The evidence against her is overwhelming. The publicity, the rumors, what people might think." "Let me tell you another story," Richard interrupted gently. 10 years ago, when I was expanding into luxury resorts, I partnered with a developer named Frank Morrison. Frank handled the construction side while I managed the branding and operations. For 2 years, we built 5 beautiful properties together. Jennifer sat down across from him, drawn into the narrative despite her anxiety. Then I discovered Frank had been cutting corners on construction, using substandard materials, bribing inspectors, creating structures that looked perfect but had serious safety issues. When I confronted him, when I terminated our partnership and reported the violations, Frank sued me, claimed I was the one who'd ordered the cost-cutting measures. He dragged my name through the press for 18 months. What happened? The truth came out. Inspectors testified. Workers came forward. Frank lost his lawsuit and eventually his license. But those 18 months were hell, Jennifer. I questioned myself constantly. Wondered if I'd done something wrong, if I should have noticed sooner, if my reputation would ever recover. Richard leaned forward, his expression earnest. But you know what I learned? People who matter, people with integrity, they see through false accusations. They recognize character. The rest is just noise. "It doesn't feel like noise," Jennifer whispered. "No, it feels like your whole world is on fire." "I know." Richard's voice was gentle with understanding. "But Jennifer, look at what you've accomplished in 3 months. You've identified strong sites in 5 cities. You've built a team that respects and trusts you. You've impressed investors and board members who've been in this business for decades. That's not luck. That's talent and hard work and leadership. What if people think I only got here because of what happened with Brenda? Then those people don't deserve your energy or attention." Richard stood, preparing to leave. "Focus on the work. Let the lawyers handle the lawsuit. And trust that the quality of your contributions will speak louder than Brenda's bitterness ever could." After he left, Jennifer sat in silence for a long time. Then she opened her laptop and returned to the Nashville proposal. Richard was right, the work was what mattered. Everything else was just noise. The Houston investor meeting came faster than Jennifer expected. She stood in a glass-walled conference room, overlooking the downtown skyline. Her presentation displayed on a massive screen while 12 potential investors watched her with assessing eyes. "Compass and Key isn't just another boutique hotel brand," Jennifer explained. Clicking to a slide showing demographic data, we're targeting a specific demographic, millennial and Gen Z travelers who value authenticity over luxury, experience over amenities. They want to feel like locals, not tourists.